Welcome to The Point of View, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. Today we will be discussing the case of Peter Kürten, also known as the Vampire of Düsseldorf. Trigger warning in place. If you are not comfortable with topics relating to crime, murder, animal cruelty, and assault, we advise you to listen to one of our other episodes. Peter Kürten, later known as the Vampire of Düsseldorf, did not have an easy childhood. He was born on May 16, 1883, as the first of 13 children in a poverty-stricken family that lived in a small one-bedroom apartment. Additionally, his parents were both alcoholics, and his father physically abused him, as well as his siblings and mother. When Peter was 14, his father was imprisoned for repeated incest, and his wife shortly left him. This trauma likely led to other disturbing elements of his childhood. At age 9, he began to capture and torture animals. Although Peter was intelligent, his academic performance fell drastically as he had endured so much physical violence. He started to run away for long periods of time in order to avoid his father, living on streets and committing petty crimes with criminals he befriended to survive. Kürten claimed to have committed his first murders at age 9, when he pushed his friend off a log raft, knowing the boy could not swim. When another friend jumped in the water in an attempt to save him, Kürten held his head under the water until he drowned, too. Authorities reported the deaths to be accidents, but Kürten argued that this was untrue. Kürten's behavior only grew more concerning in his teenage years as he started to participate in bestiality with animals from local stables. He then found that he thoroughly enjoyed stabbing the animals. Following this, Kürten left school and began an apprenticeship as a molder. 2 years later, he stole all of the money he could find in his home, plus some from his employer, and ran away from home. He was soon charged with breaking and entering and theft, and imprisoned for 1 month. After being released, he went back to a life of petty crime and survival. His next claimed murder was in 1899, when he strangled an 18-year-old girl until she was unconscious and fled. However, it is likely that the victim survived, unbeknownst to Kürten. This proved to him that he truly enjoyed the act of murdering and led to his next actions.
Shortly after, in 1900, he was arrested for fraud and then again later in the year for the same reason. The second occasion, however, he was charged for the attempted murder of a girl with a firearm as well. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison in 1900 and served his sentence in Düsseldorf. After being released in the summer of 1904, he was drafted into the Imperial German Army, where he served his time, but that autumn he took a turn and began to commit acts of arson, which he would enjoy watching from a distance as emergency services attempted to extinguish the fires. Kürten would then go to admit to 24 acts of arson upon his arrest on New Year's Eve. He was charged on multiple counts of arson, robbery, and attempted robbery, and served prison time from 1905 to 1913. During this time, he explained that during his period of incarceration, he encountered several forms of self-discipline where he would have fantasies that included graphic fantasies of mass killings and striking out in society. These fantasies became overbearing in his dreams and mind, and he admitted to wanting to see or act on them. Kürten's first recalled murder was on the 25th of May in 1913. During a burglary, he ran into a 9-year-old girl, Christian Klein, asleep in her bed. He went about strangling her, then slashed her throat twice. The following day, Kürten specifically returned to a tavern opposite of where he murdered Klein so he could observe the society's reaction to the murder. He felt a sense of gratification for their reactions of disgust and outrage. Later on, this would lead him to visit Klein's grave. After about 2 months, he decided to commit another burglary and found a 17-year-old, Gertrude Franken, asleep in her bed. Again, he strangled her before escaping the scene undetected. After this murder, he decided to live a pretty low life and not seeking any more murders but still fantasizing about them. From 1929 to 1930 is when his desire to murder became overwhelming, with 30 attempted murders but 11 confessed. The police were first made aware of his identity in 1929 when the body of 8-year-old Rosa Oliger was found. She was strangled into unconsciousness and then stabbed repeatedly with scissors. Many murders within the area began to show up with the same scissor wounds, which led police to look for the same suspect despite the ranges in age. On May 14, 1930, Kürten raped a young woman named Maria Budlick and then let her go. He realized that he would soon be arrested for this crime. Throughout the entirety of his crimes, he remained fond of his wife. Throughout the entirety of his crimes, he had remained fond of his wife. So, to prepare her for his arrest, he confessed to her the full extent of all his crimes and told her that she would be paid for turning him into the authorities. On May 24th, she reluctantly did so. Kürten proved a lengthy confession in hopes that his wife would receive more compensation if he was truthful. However, he initially retracted his entire confession in his 1931 trial, claiming he had only done it for his wife's financial security. In the end, he was extensively interrogated and finally confessed to his guilt, claiming that his childhood and trauma was to blame for his behavior, and he showed no remorse.
To close the book on Peter Kürten, we must start where our society closed the book on him, in the courts. With Kürten's own consent, his wife turned him in for the award on his head. Through it all, Kürten remained confused. Why was everyone mad? Why were the faces of the men cuffing him red like a blaze? In his confession, he spoke, trying to justify every last deed he committed, every last sight he saw, and every last blushing glory sound that he loved and enjoyed. There was no remorse, only insanity. His last words questioned if he could hear his own gush out of his neck, a pleasing sound to him. He is a man who will be remembered as a vampire, ingrained in pop culture forever. It is important to remember that we're walking away with questions, deep, uncomfortable questions about what drives a person to commit such horrible acts, and how our society responds when it's faced with its purest form of evil. Kürten wasn't a ghost or a legend. He was real. He walked among people, blended in, and left a trail of fear that lasted long after he was caught. His crimes weren't just brutal, they were psychological, acts for him to be remembered, to be ingrained in our society. And the damage didn't end with the victims. It spread to families, investigators, and the entire city that had to relearn how to sleep once more. But, however, his legacy isn't just about terror, it's about change. His case pushed the boundaries of the police force, forcing new conversations about mental illness, and challenged our courts to evolve. It made us all ask, how can we protect the vulnerable? How do we recognize the danger before it strikes? And above all else, how do we heal when the worst has already happened? Tonight, as Halloween comes, we will learn the thrill of fear once more. Let's remember the difference between fiction and reality. Kürten wasn't a character in a horror film. He was real. A reminder that real monsters don't always wear a mask. They don't always haunt a home, and they don't always arise from the dead. Real monsters wear suits, smile politely, and live next door. So thank you for listening, stay curious, and above all, stay human. Happy Halloween.
This concludes this episode about Peter Kürten. Thank you so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode, head to the Point of View tab on our website, nhsmessenger.org, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NHS Point of View for updates and new episodes. We're your hosts, Avery,
Nikki.
John.
and this has been Point of View.